Hi there, Amy here. Today I am hopping on live to talk about intuition, the science behind it, and high stakes leadership decisions. We're going to cover what you might normally think of when you hear the word intuition, and of course, what the science says. And then I will also share a simple framework that can help you, that can support you when you're making high stakes decisions under pressure, whether they are decisions for your leadership career or if you are a high performer. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. I think that when we normally hear the word intuition, people might often think of something that is emotional, maybe even mystical, maybe unreliable. And I want to work to reframe that today, to reframe intuition instead as something that is much more grounded and much more useful in supporting you in making those decisions under pressure, which we can often be experiencing pressure when we're making important decisions. So rather than thinking of intuition as something that is impulsive, it can actually be a very useful tool. Intuition is information. It's more than just a gut instinct, but it can also guide your direction. For example, what additional information do I need to help inform my decision? So, intuition, scientifically defined, is pattern recognition. So, whatever area you have expert experience in, or whatever experiences you've had in your past, well, these experiences develop pattern recognition. But when we're not paying attention to those signals that are showing up, when we are operating from an unregulated nervous system, then we can miss those signals. But when we are hearing those signals, we can better tap into our intuition. So intuition is pattern recognition plus experience plus having a regulated nervous system. And the science also defines intuition as, or pattern recognition rather, let's define that a little bit more specifically and clearly. So it's identifying, classifying, and interpreting signals. What are the regularities? What are the structures? What are the outliers in a data set? And it can be easy to miss some of these signals when we're not operating when we're operating under stress and we're not operating from a clear regulated system. So pattern recognition involves detecting patterns, like for example, behaviors or traits, and the ability to tap into our intuition, that pattern recognition. Well, then the better we can make decisions that are going to work in our favor. So pattern recognition is useful in organizing information and making decisions. And when you hear people talk about being highly intuitive, I know I often claim this for myself, but it's not because we're people that feel like they are highly intuitive are special or necessarily different. I think it's because they've been able to better harness and tap into the signals and that are showing up, the information that they already have available to them. So a lot of times when we're searching for a solution, for an answer, we're looking for that external data, which we want to obtain more of that, but we don't want to disregard the information that we already have available to us. And the good news about intuition is that it's something that can be learned through self-reflection exercises and after action reviews. So thinking about, okay, so here's what happened last time in a similar scenario, maybe different context. Well, what worked and what didn't, and what was the result, and then how can I take and apply this information to help me in my decision making moving forward. So the conversation, the goal rather, is about this conversation, and the goal is about observing and recognizing patterns from our past experiences, and how can we take and apply this information that we already have in a different context moving forward, and better interpret the signals that we already have to make informed decisions. But if you're starting from a place, which we often are when we're experiencing stress, a place that is not calm, and we're not operating from a regulated nervous system. And if we're experiencing change in our life and in our career, in our leadership role, or we're under pressure to move quickly, then this stress, the research shows, can impact our decision making. But it is intuition is something that is teachable. It is trainable, so you can absolutely better learn to heed your intuition and tap into those signals, or pick up on those signals, and then use that to make better decisions. And this way, decision making can become sharper and clearer. So let's talk quickly about the science behind intuition. So what is the research showing or talking about? Research defines intuition as a non-conscious information processing. So our brains are always taking in a lot of data, and some insights surface, the research finds, before conscious analysis. And we want to be able to better use that information rather than disregard it, is what I'm suggesting with this conversation. And when we are operating from a calm system, then we're better able to access these insights and more accurately. So we'll get back to the science in just a moment, but I wanted to share just a quick story from my personal life. So I really struggled to get my career started years back. It was 4 years. It had been 4 years since I had graduated college, and I was working, but I hadn't started my career. I just kept working the same job that had supported me through college. And I was really struggling to get my career started. And it was not for lack of effort. I was applying for jobs. I was trying to figure out my path, what felt like the right role for me, what felt like the right direction. I had a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety that I was experiencing at the time. So this was a lot of external noise. And as a result, I really couldn't hear my intuition, the information, the signals that I already had available to me. So I was searching for an external solution without listening to the internal signal. And finally, one evening, after just years, 4 years to be specific, of feeling stressed and anxious and not finding the solution, something told me. I just instinctively got quiet and shut out all of the external noise. And what I mean by shutting it out was, I stopped searching for a solution. I stopped trying to force the answer, and instead I got quiet. And with that quiet, I had a moment of clarity. And instead of looking for the solution, I instead asked myself, I instead stated the problem. First, I stated the problem. I said, I want a new job, but I don't know what it is. And that clarity, that moment of calm, created further clarity. And then my next step came in, which was to ask myself a question, which was, if I could do anything, what would I do? And I had the answer in an instant. I said, I would write. And then what happened was nothing. I just went to sleep. But actually, what I had done was created a huge success habit, which is to operate from a place of calm and stop searching for the solution. And then the answer finds you. So I went to sleep, and in the morning, I woke up and I got an idea. And that was my first step. And I took that first step, and then the next step came. And then 3 weeks later, from that idea, I won't go through the whole story here. From that idea, I took a step and I got an interview, and I got the job, and I got my career on track and started my my sales career. In just 3 weeks, I ended up changing my life after 4 years of struggle. And so this is how, in operating from a place of calm, we pick up on our intuition and can really harness what those internal signals are telling us, rather than, and then we want to, that's the first step, is listening to that intuitive information that we already have, and then we work to apply the external information. But a lot of times, when we're feeling stuck or under stress, we're searching for the solution first without applying the information that is already available to us. So just quick example there, how I was able to change my life by getting my career on track after 4 years of struggle, in 3 short weeks with just this simple process here. And I'll share the framework as we go here. But one piece of research, and I shared the articles, I linked the articles in case you want to check them out. But the first one is on two systems thinking by Daniel Kahneman. And he's a psychologist. He's known as the founding father of modern behavioral economics, and his work influenced how it influenced decision making, how we see decision making. So he talks about, okay, system one being our intuition. It's always on. We can't turn it off. It's underlying it. It's always there. And then system two is where logic comes in. And this is where we want to search for that external information that we don't already have. But we don't want to discount the information that we do already have, our intuition. And he talks about how stress can reduce, or further research talks about how stress can reduce cognitive flexibility, ability to see different choices and to choose the right one that's going to be optimal for us and lead us to the desired outcomes that we're looking for. So when we're coming from a place of calm, like in the personal experience that I just shared, well, this improves, the research shows, signal to noise ratio. And so what is noise? Well, for me in that example, it was stress, it was anxiety. Noise is, in this context, any external input that is distracting rather than contributing to your decision-making process. And research shows that stress does alter your decision-making process. Now, whether stress improves or impairs the decisions, that is going to depend on the specific task, the context, and the level of uncertainty. But my thought is, if the research is determining that system one thinking is always on, that we could absolutely hinder our decision making if we try to, if we don't heed what that initial our intuition, if we don't, like, if our intuition is strong enough to keep us safe and protected, as it instinctively is, couldn't it also be strong enough to guide us in our decision making? So I'm not suggesting that we rely solely in our on our intuition, but we don't want to disregard it either. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, the system one and system two thinking. System one is always on. So if we can come from a place of calm, we can better interpret the information that we already have available to us. And there's also research that shows that good decisions often begin with bodily signals before we interpret our conscious reasoning. And that's a pretty interesting article that I'll leave in the description as well, on advantageous decision making. So a lot of times our subconscious is informing or working to inform our decision making before conscious reasoning catches up. And so what happens with leadership when we're under stress, when we are maybe experiencing burnout? People can lose access to those bodily signals and over rely on logic, which can result in overthinking and misaligned decisions. So I think that when leaders, professionals, high performers, when we're making bad decisions, which I'll define as decisions that lead to those undesired outcomes, is not because we lack intelligence. A lot of times it's because we're flooded with so much external noise, and that we don't hear the internal signals that can really help in supporting our decisions. And so what are some examples of why leaders might struggle to trust that internal signal? A lot of times there's pressure to move quickly for a decision. There may be over reliance on external validation, seeking others' approval. And this is something that we all can often struggle with. And sometimes we also might struggle with urgency versus clarity. Okay, pressure to move quickly, but wait a minute, do we have clarity? Do we have the important information that we need before we make this decision? And so before we talk about learning to trust our intuition, this is I want to bring up decision readiness. And so that's what I mean by that confusing urgency with clarity. Yes, we want to make a decision and take action quickly, but do we have the key information that we need? And this is where your intuition can often guide you to understand what information you need next. We're never going to have all of the information. There's always more to gather, and there's not enough time to gather all of it. But your intuition, that system one thinking, that subconscious, that feeling that you get in your gut can help guide your direction as far as figuring out what additional information that you do need before you make that decision. All right, so let's talk about the framework, which I'm going to call CLEAR. And this framework, the CLEAR framework, can help you to help support you in making better decisions under stress. And better is the aligned decision that's going to lead to that desired outcome. So how can you work to create those internal decisions internal conditions for better clarity to make the clear decisions? So this is an acronym, the CLEAR framework. C is for calm. And so what you can do is first regulate before deciding. Like in the example that I gave, I had struggled trying to find my solution for 4 years when finally I took a different action. I made a choice to instead just get calm. And I didn't even realize what I was doing, but we see it changed the trajectory of my life and got my career on track. So first, pause and slow your physiology by closing your eyes, by taking a breath, a few breaths. And what you're doing is you're creating space for the for clarity to come, for awareness, for your next step to come. And from there, only from a place of calm can you then listen. Then you want to listen so that you can hear your internal signal, your body cues. What repeating patterns are you noticing? How are you feeling? What data is giving you pause internally? So these are some examples of what you might hear when you listen. But we can't listen without first coming from that place of calm. And your intuition, it shows up quietly, and it shows up first. So one framework that I often teach and coach on is what I call fear versus intuition. And so this is part of the CLEAR framework here. And how can you identify intuition versus fear? Well, intuition is always going to show up first. Remember that system 1, system 2 thinking, according to scientific research, system 1 is always on. So your intuition is always on. So it's by definition, it's going to show up first, and often it's quieter, but it's consistent. Whereas the fear will be louder. So this is how you can distinguish between the two. And you can also do an after action review of decisions that worked out well for you that led to a positive outcome, and then decisions that led to not so good outcome. And you can take and apply or review this concept. Well, was I coming from a clear space and listening to my intuition when I made that decision, and or was I not? And then by doing this after action review, this can help you in your future decisions. Okay, so we have calm, we have listen, and then the E is evaluate. What's consistent versus reactive? What feels urgent versus what feels aligned? Where am I trying to interpret signals that are maybe somebody else's expectation versus what is actually feeling right to me? So you want to start with a place of calm, listen, and then evaluate the signals that are showing up. And remember, fear is going to be loud, but the signal that is yours, this is going to be consistent. It's maybe a little bit quieter. This is your intuition, but it's consistent. Like, for example, if you are you're in a decision-making process about a hire, and all of the external seems to be pointing to this is a good potential hire, but something underlying a little bit quieter keeps showing up as something a signal that you want to pay attention to. So that would be an example. So fear is loud, but that signal is your signal, your intuition. This is consistent. It's going to keep showing up. So then the next, the A is for act. So then you want to decide. You want to make just one decision, just one step, not well, if I choose this, then this might happen. Or if I take this step, how am I going to get to this step, multiple steps down the line? That's not how life works. We can't predict step number 10. We want to make the first step, and then only from there can your first step will inform the next step. Like, for example, in the example that the personal experience that I shared. So I got quiet and I stated the problem, and then the next step came in. Okay, ask yourself a question. And then the next step came in where I got the idea. But when we're not trusting and when we're overriding that first step coming from a place of calm and listening to the signal, this is where we can get out of alignment with our decisions. So yes, we do want to be decisive. We do want to take action, but not without the clarity. So that's the piece right there that can often be missing when we make decisions that lead to those undesired outcomes. I don't really like to use the word mistake, and I don't often like to use the word failure, because as long as we are learning, then it's not a failure. We're equipping ourselves, or making to make better decisions moving forward. And then R is for review. This is that after action review that I mentioned a moment ago. So we want to integrate the learning so that we can make better decisions moving forward. Okay, so I've been here before. A lot of times when we feel like we're stuck, or when we haven't grown beyond a certain decision-making process that continues leading us down a path that is not aligned, like a bad hire or a career choice that we don't feel very good about, whatever area that you tend to feel stuck in, it's going to keep showing up. So how we can overcome that and finally move forward in toward the direction that we want to go. What worked out in this scenario before? What didn't? What pattern did I notice? And when you can notice the pattern, if you are stuck in a certain area, when you notice the pattern of how you make decisions based on how you are feeling, then you can really start to create change in your life, in your hiring process, in your career, whatever it is for you. So don't skip the R. The review is very important. This is how you train your intuition. Okay, before, in that situation, similar situation, different context, different people, I had that feeling, the signal was there, but I overrode it and I went in this direction anyway. And then the result was suboptimal outcome. So super simple, but we see how impactful this framework can be when you apply it in those challenging areas. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And this is, again, is how you train your intuition. And you can apply this framework in your hiring decisions, in your scope decisions, your strategy and scope decisions, and for when it's maybe time to let go of a misaligned opportunity, in boundary setting. Those internal signals are showing up. They're there. That system one thinking is always there, and often trying to inform us before the logical reasoning. And logic is important, but a lot of times the logic is where the fear comes in. So intuition first, and then fear. But if you take and apply the signals that are showing up that you already have within you, and then you use them to help you figure out the additional external information that you need, then you're going to be better equipped to make sharper decisions under pressure. And that's the goal of the conversation today. So I hope that helped. Remember the clear framework: calm, listen, evaluate, act, and then review. And it sounds like it might take some additional time, but really you can go through the complete framework in just a moment with your future decisions. So I do invite you to ask yourself, where slowing down by 2 minutes, 5 minutes to apply this framework, where might this save you months of cleanup later? So remember, intuition, if you may have thought of it before as mystical, it's actually something that is trainable. It's not something that it is something that we are born with, but you can train yourself to tap into it better, to make better, sharper decisions during times of stress. And you can improve your ability to pick up on the signal, to harness your intuition when you come from a place of calm, by starting with a place from that calm state, and then reflecting and on your experiences. So remember, intuition is more than just a gut feeling. but it's what clarity sounds like and feels like when you give yourself some space to quiet down that fear. So what decisions, ask yourself, what decisions are you currently rushing, and how could applying this clear framework support you in making decisions that are better aligned, that lead to better outcomes, even when you're, and especially during those times of stress. So thank you for watching today. I hope that you got some value from the video. If you did, I invite you to like and subscribe. And if you want to go deeper, you're welcome to check out my books and courses, and or to connect with me. The links are in the description, and we'll see you in the next one.